Wouldn't it be nice if all IT systems could be coupled and decoupled just like that? No matter the size of them. A small thing, like a little something supporting a sensor, telling the present temperature, or maybe a controller for a servo motor for a heater, or maybe something a lot more complex, like a financial system. All connectable or disconnectable, just like that. Wouldn't it be nice? We'd be able to upgrade and replace parts as we'd like and need. We could easily add some more power where the performance is poor, or reduce it when it's no longer needed. We would switch to another system. If the present one should fail, we could easily adapt and tailor our setup for the situation at hand. All this is not just a dream. We can. What we need to do is to make our IT systems couplable. We're going to spend a few minutes on how to solve it. But before we do that, we need to understand the challenge. We need to get a grip of what's required. We're living in an ever-changing world where more and more of the things we use in our daily life gets digitalized. Our phones provide us with powerful navigation features that we have all learned to take for granted. Our cars are online and call for emergency assistance if needed. Our refrigerators let us know if something needs to be refilled. The ventilation system lets us know when it's time to change filters, based on measured quality of the air and not just hours in operations. Some things may even independently, without our interaction, call for service when required. All these things seemed futuristic visions a few years ago, but now it's all part of our daily life. One may wonder what the future will bring. One thing that will be there is an interconnectability between systems and interchangeability of information between them. Let's consider some examples. We're heading along a countryside road, guided by the navigation system in our car, just enjoying the view and scenery, looking forward to meeting our friends at the end of our journey. Suddenly, the GPS chip in the car stops working. But there's still at least one fully functional inside the car, and it is connected. It might not be quite as accurate, but is probably good enough. It is inside one of the mobile phones connected to the car. The navigation system in the car could use that one for a while, at least until the next visit at the workshop. We make a stop at the local grocery store. As we browse the shelves, the light goes off. Someone carelessly dug off the power line, and there's a power outage in the entire block. The refrigerators and freezers start thawing, and it's pitch dark inside. But there is power available in the block. Our car and the 63 others parked there are all electrical, and their power could easily cut in and serve as a backup until the regular power line is repaired. Eventually we arrive at our friend's house. Their house has a smart climate control system, keeping the temperature at a constant level, cooling when required and heating when required. The heating part is done by warming the floor, but the floor is a large block of concrete, and it heats and cools a bit slowly, leading to a heating system that reacts a bit slow to changes. If the outdoor temperature changes, it does take a while for the floor to adjust, and there is a risk of the indoor temperature rising too high or dropping too low. But there is a weather forecast information available where the outdoor temperature, wind speed, and direction and sunlight intensity is predicted. The climate system can easily connect to that and adjust proactively. There might even be several suppliers of weather forecast, and the system could over time select the one that's most reliable. But that's all visions and ideas right now. Quite feasible, of course, but still just visions and ideas. The good thing about visions and ideas is that they provide us with a starting point. We can use them to find the requirements we need to fulfill for them to come true. First of all, we will want to need to use presently available solutions and make as small adaptations as possible to them, partly for the reason of cost. We do not want to start from square one and spend another fortune to develop a feature that already exists. Partly for the reason of lead time. We don't have the time for that kind of undertaking. The market window will have closed by the time we're done. Also partly for the reason of quality. The present solution does work. If we start all over again, we will risk a decay in quality. Second, we will want to be able to introduce whatever the solution contains in some kind of steps, or maybe even better, in a seamless continuity if possible. Let us take the GPS navigator as an example. It does not make sense to add this kind of flexibility to all GPS navigator chips at once. We need to be able to keep the solutions we already have for yet a while and progressively migrate into a new paradigm. Third, we need the solution to be adaptive to change. By change, we mean with respect to requirements, to selection and configuration of components, to suppliers, and to new technology. Fourth, we will want to use components of diverse quality, all to keep the cost down for our solution. We want to combine components that are mature and well tested in combinations with prototypes and even freeware. We want to try new and unknown suppliers without removing any of our validated services. This way our solution will be a bit of a dynamic playground where features and parts may be plugged in and out as desired. As a positive side effect, we will be able to enhance competition between suppliers. To solve all that, we need to define a few things and design a solution based on that set of definitions. Let us begin with the term service. A service is a functionality available in our network. It is provided by one entity and ready for use by another. To take an example, a navigational system needs positioning information from a well enough reliable source. Present position could be identified as one of the services in our solution. We illustrate the service with a lollipop and socket symbols. The lollipop symbolizes the producer side of the service and the socket symbolizes the consumer side. The navigational system where maps, routes, and presentation data would be the consumer of the present position service, while the GPS chip would be the producer of it. Any entity that we want to be a part of the service, that is, produce or consume it, needs to contain a piece of logic that supports that. We call that part a service interface. So if we want the GPS in our mobile to be a producer of the present position service, it will need a service interface for that. And here's the good part. That service interface is a much smaller thing than the entire positioning logic inside a GPS chip. We call the combination of hardware and software that constitutes the complete producer and consumer of a service a system. A system may, of course, produce and consume more than one service. Let us look back at our scenario again and consider the climate control in our friend's house. It is likely that it is set up by a number of systems, and it is likely that there is a controller system in it that consumes and produces a number of services. It is likely that it consumes services like present indoor temperature and humidity and present outdoor temperature, humidity and wind speed. The house is heated by the floor and hence there are no radiators. Therefore the controller system is probably also a consumer of a service, floor temperature. It probably produces a number of services depending on the design of choice. Let us assume that our friend has features in the mobile to view the status of the house climate, maybe the same as the gauges in each room, maybe even features a set schedules for climate adjustments over both weeks and days. The controller system would need to produce services like climate data summary and climate data setting, again depending on the chosen design. But all this is not without challenge. How do we make sure that the consumer interacts with the right service provider? We need to know at the service consumer side that the service provider actually does what is expected. If we expect a temperature reading, we need to get that and nothing completely different. Our friends need to know that the climate readings and settings are about the right house and not about their neighbors. Not to mention that the neighbors need to know that our friends do not change anything about their house. The climate control system in our friend's house utilizes weather forecasting service, and so do many others. The two highest prioritized requirements are forecast accuracy and response time. The forecast information has to be reliable and it needs to respond in a reasonable time. More and more users tend to connect to the service over time, and then the need for information changes by the season. This causes usage of the service and thereby the load to vary over time. Therefore, the service provider needs some kind of dynamic resource allocation to the service. To take on these challenges, the Arrowhead Framework defines three core systems. These are Service Registry, Authorization System, and Orchestration System. The Service Registry system deals with service registration and discovery. It holds and provides information about which service providers there are and how to find them. It also deals with authenticity, ensuring that the registered service providers are authentic. The authorization system deals with the aspect of making sure that the service producers only provide the services to the service consumers entitled to use them. The orchestration system provides the functionality of managing connection rules. This might be things like finding the nearest service provider, adding resources when needed, and deallocating when no longer needed. Let us look back at our scenario again and play it in a bit different way. When arriving to the grocery store, the battery in our car is a bit low and needs to be recharged a bit for it to be fully functional as a power backup. In such a case, we may want to set some kind of restrictions for power sharing. It is probably not a good idea to share it publicly, and maybe not even for the block. We might even want to put restrictions for our own house and home once we get there. But what about sharing it with emergency services? If we're able to save even one person's life while completely draining our battery, we could probably live with the consequences, even if it meant we would destroy the battery permanently. With an authorization system in the network, we are able to put restrictions on how our service is utilized. With an orchestration system in the network, we can easily adjust the utilization of the power sharing functionality of the cars in the parking lot. With a service registry system, we're able to register our services and publish their presence in the network.